What is inner freedom, really? We often talk about freedom as something external, the ability to go where we want, to choose what we buy, to say what we think. But beneath that surface level liberty, there lies a deeper question. Are we truly free inside? Because if you're ruled by anger, enslaved by fear, or pulled in every direction by the need to be approved, then does the outer freedom even matter? The Stoics believe that real freedom has little to do with your surroundings and everything to do with your soul. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." It's a sentence that seems simple until you try living it. Think about it. Can you go a day without letting someone's words disturb your peace? Can you face a setback without spiraling into frustration? Can you say no without guilt or sit in silence without needing to distract yourself? If not, then what owns you? A thought, a fear, a habit? That's the question Stoicism invites us to ask. Not what can I do, but who am I when no one is watching? Because true freedom is not granted by laws or rulers. It's claimed moment by moment through self-mastery. Let's pause for a moment and contrast two kinds of freedom. The modern view says, you are free if you can do whatever you want. The Stoic view says, you are free if you don't have to do whatever you want. It's a paradox, but it's also a profound truth. Modern freedom isn't about expansion, more options, more possessions, more control. But Stoic freedom is about reduction, fewer attachments, fewer compulsions, fewer things that can pull you off course. Because the Stoics knew, the more things you think you need to be happy, the more fragile your peace becomes. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." He was an emperor. He had armies, palaces, wealth beyond measure. And yet his writings barely mention any of it. Why? Because even surrounded by absolute power, Marcus saw that the real battle was internal, to remain calm when insulted, to act justly when tempted by revenge, to stay humble even while wearing a crown. That's the Stoic image of freedom, not the king who commands others, but the one who commands himself. Seneca, too, reminds us that freedom is not dependent on fate. He once wrote, "A man is not made miserable by events, but by the view he takes of them." To the Stoics, freedom isn't about escaping difficulty, it's about meeting difficulty with dignity. Not being untouched by pain, but refusing to let pain shape who you are. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you begin to feel something rare, a quiet strength, a space within that nothing outside can invade. That is inner freedom. So let me ask you now, what controls you? A memory you can't forget, a habit you wish you could break, a person whose opinion still shakes your confidence? What if freedom wasn't something you had to chase, but something you could reclaim? Not by changing your life, but by changing the way you meet your life. Because in the end, inner freedom is the only freedom no one can take from you. It's not granted, it's not inherited, it's not purchased. It's practiced, sharpened, earned, each time you choose clarity over confusion. Purpose over pressure, courage over comfort. And so we begin this journey, not toward escape, but toward liberation from within. Epictetus, the slave who was more free than his masters. What does it mean to be free? Is it the absence of chains, the ability to roam where you wish, say what you want, and live as you please? That's the definition most people accept. But Epictetus, a man born in literal chains, challenged all of it. He was born a slave in the Roman Empire. He had no possessions, no rights, no control over his body, his time, or even his name. Yet, centuries later, the world remembers him, not as a victim, but as a philosopher, not as a prisoner, but as one of the freest souls to ever live. Epictetus didn't just study freedom, he embodied it. He taught that true freedom is not given by society, it's created in the soul. He said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. At first glance, that might sound unrealistic, but pause and think, how many of our daily struggles come from things we can't control? Other people's opinions, delays, expectations, outcomes, even the weather. We lose sleep, peace, and clarity, not because of what is, but because we wish it were something else. Epictetus' life gave him no illusion of control. As a slave, he learned early that he could not control his circumstances. But what he could control, his thoughts, his choices, his responses, that was sacred ground. And so he shifted his energy inward. He stopped trying to own the world and started mastering himself. And in that quiet shift, he discovered something powerful. Freedom lives where desire ends. When you no longer crave approval, when you're not ruled by outcomes, when you let go of what isn't yours to hold, then no one can enslave you, not even with chains. Epictetus once told a story to his students. Imagine a man chained by the ankle. His body may be bound, but if his mind remains unshaken, then he is freer than the man who owns him, because the real prison is not metal, it's attachment. It's wanting life to be different and refusing to accept what is. That's what the Stoics call enslavement. Not physical slavery, but slavery to anger, to fear, to desire, to resentment. Freedom, then, is a discipline, a daily decision, not to let the external world decide who you are inside. His teachings might seem harsh to modern ears. He often said things like, if someone insults you, it's only your opinion that you've been harmed, or you are disturbed not by events, but by your view of them. But he wasn't dismissing pain. He was offering a path through it. Because Epictetus knew pain. He lived with a disabled leg, possibly broken by a cruel master. He lived with poverty, with rejection, with the limits of the body. But he refused to let those define him. Instead, he became a teacher of emperors. A mind so clear and steady, it has inspired philosophers, presidents, and soldiers for over 2,000 years. So what can we learn from this man, this slave who walked freer than kings? We learn that freedom is not a destination. It's a way of being. It's saying, I will not tie my happiness to things I cannot hold. I will not let circumstances dictate the peace inside me. I will practice control over the only thing that is truly mine, myself. That kind of freedom doesn't fade with fortune. It doesn't depend on applause, and it doesn't disappear when life gets hard. In fact, it shines brightest because life gets hard. So today, ask yourself, what are you a slave to? A past mistake, someone's opinion, your expectations? And what would it feel like to let go of that? To reclaim the power of your attention, your intention, your peace. Epictetus may have lived in chains, but he died with something far rarer than comfort. A soul unshaken, a mind at peace, a freedom that no one could take, and that, perhaps, is the highest kind of freedom there is. Marcus Aurelius, ruling the world yet answering only to himself. What happens when the most powerful man in the world keeps a private journal, not about wealth, war, or glory, but about how to stay humble, calm, and kind? You get Meditations, a book never meant to be published, a window into the soul of an emperor who ruled the vast Roman Empire, yet struggled, just like us, with fear, distraction, and the weight of expectation. This was Marcus Aurelius, a man at the height of worldly success, and yet he reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Marcus ruled an empire but refused to be ruled by ego. He could command armies with a gesture. He could decree laws, control cities, and influence the fate of millions. But that wasn't the power he valued most. In his private reflections, Marcus rarely wrote about others. He wrote about himself, his flaws, his thoughts, his discipline. He wasn't trying to dominate the world. He was trying to understand it. More importantly, to understand himself. He knew conquering the world is meaningless if you haven't first mastered your own mind. Despite his title, Marcus never believed he was above human struggle. He spoke of being tempted by pride. He admitted how easily he could be disturbed by others' foolishness. He reminded himself not to give in to anger, indulgence, or laziness. He lived among luxury but practiced restraint. He had access to excess but trained himself in simplicity, because for him, true power was measured by self-restraint, not self-indulgence. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. That was his way. Not lecturing, not posing, just practicing. Quietly. Every day. Marcus's freedom wasn't in status, it was in self-command. He once wrote, "Just that you do the right thing, the rest doesn't matter." He knew he couldn't control how others judged him. He couldn't guarantee that his empire would last. He couldn't stop aging, illness, or even betrayal. But he could choose how to meet all of it, with reason, with integrity, with calm. That's what the Stoics call inner freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom from being controlled by what you want. And this is where Marcus teaches us something modern and urgent. We don't need to be emperors to feel pressure. Today, we carry the world in our phones, comparison, ambition, judgment, distractions, all in our pockets. But like Marcus, we can learn to turn inward, to ask not, how do I get more, but What do I truly need? Not what do they think of me, but am I living according to what I value? To pause, even in chaos, and remember, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. That clarity, that courage is where real freedom begins. Marcus led armies, but he also fought silent wars against his own vanity, impulses, and desires. And in those quiet battles, he won something even greater than a kingdom: peace of mind, integrity, wisdom. He didn't write meditations for fame. He wrote them as reminders to stay human, to remain a servant of virtue, not ego. And through his words, he continues to rule, not over lands, but over hearts seeking calm and direction. So ask yourself, in your own life, are you chasing power or building presence? Are you reacting to everything around you or mastering what's going on within? Marcus Aurelius shows us that the highest power isn't about commanding the world, it's about answering to your highest self, even when no one's watching. Even emperors wrestle with restlessness. But with stillness, honesty, and discipline, we too can build an inner empire, stronger than any throne. Seneca on fortune, fate, and the power of the mind. What if you could walk through chaos with calm? What if your sense of peace didn't rise and fall with your bank account, your health, or others' opinions? Seneca, the Stoic philosopher and statesman, believed that this kind of unshakable freedom was not only possible, but essential. A man is free the moment he wishes to be, not when he becomes wealthy, not when life finally goes according to plan, but the moment he takes command of his own mind. Seneca lived in luxury, but sought liberation from it. He was advisor to an emperor, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, surrounded by power, opulence, and danger, and yet he warned of it all. He knew that fortune is a wave, rising today, crashing tomorrow. He wrote not just from theory, but from the edge of political exile, betrayal, and near death. Through it all, Seneca came to a powerful realization. The only real security is inner independence. Wealth, it can vanish overnight. Health, delicate as breath. Reputation, built over years, destroyed in seconds. Seneca didn't say these things are bad. He said they're unstable, borrowed, never truly ours. So why should we anchor our happiness to them? Why should our peace be held hostage by things beyond our control? The Stoic answer, it shouldn't. Instead, Seneca taught the art of inner economy, to need less, to fear less, to expect less. And in that simplicity, to find something astonishing: freedom. No man is by misfortune unless he has first been deceived by prosperity. Seneca believed that we suffer more when we assume life will always go our way. But if we prepare for change, we're less shaken by it. So he practiced voluntary discomfort, sleeping on the floor, eating plain food, not to suffer, but to remind himself, if this happened, I could still endure. When you train the mind to be content with little, fortune loses its power to control you. Seneca's Stoicism isn't cold, it's courageous. He didn't suggest that we avoid love, ambition, or beauty. He simply asked, what happens if it's taken away? If your identity, your joy, your purpose rests on something you could lose tomorrow, is it really yours? Real strength, he believed, was the ability to say, I can enjoy this and still live without it. This wasn't detachment from life. It was deeper participation, rooted in clarity. Seneca lived by this principle. Don't cling, don't chase, don't fear. Instead, reflect, prepare, choose wisely. Today, we live in a world that worships fortune, more followers, more dollars, more recognition. But Seneca reminds us, you could gain the whole world and still feel lost. You could check every box and still feel restless. Unless your mind is clear, your desires measured, and your soul at peace, you are not yet free. Seneca's freedom wasn't found in palaces. It was forged in philosophy, in silence, in sharp honesty with himself. He asked, what do I truly need? What am I afraid to lose? Who am I without all this? And in answering, he became rich in the only way that lasts. So ask yourself, what are you clinging to? What if you stopped? What are you chasing? What if you no longer needed it? And most of all, what if freedom isn't something you earn, but something you choose? Seneca chose it in every letter, every reflection, every breath. And through his words, he left behind not wealth or status, but a path to a kind of freedom no fate can take from you. The Stoic definition of slavery, a mind ruled by passions. What if the real prison isn't made of walls, but of emotions you can't control? The Stoics believed that true slavery wasn't about being owned by someone else. It was about being ruled from within by your own unchecked desires, fears, and impulses. He is the most enslaved who is a slave to himself. Seneca. This wasn't a metaphor. To the Stoics, losing control of your inner world meant losing your freedom entirely. You could live in a palace where the finest robes command armies and still be enslaved, not to a tyrant outside, but to the tyrant within. What does it mean to be ruled by passion? It's when anger decides how you speak, when envy whispers what you deserve, when fear controls your choices, when desire overrides your values. In those moments, you're no longer leading your life, you're being dragged by it. You're not thinking, you're reacting. You're not choosing, you're chasing. You're not free, you're bound. The Stoics didn't say emotions are evil. They said unexamined emotion is dangerous. It turns you into a puppet, tugged around by every pull of pleasure or pain. They believed that freedom was not doing whatever you feel like. It was not being ruled by whatever you feel. It's the power to pause, to reflect, to respond with reason, not reflex. Imagine this. Someone insults you. You flare up, shout, retaliate. You feel justified. But are you free? Or are you controlled by anger? Now imagine you pause. You breathe. You choose silence or calm clarity. You walk away, not because you're weak, but because you're strong. That's freedom. No man is free who is not master of himself. Epictetus. For the Stoics, self-mastery is the highest form of liberty. Not just mastering your calendar, your finances, or your habits, but mastering your inner world, your judgments, your desires, your impulses. Because if those aren't in your hands, nothing else really is. Why is this so important? Because passions distort your vision. Desire can make you chase things that harm you. Fear can make you avoid things that would grow you. Anger can destroy what you love. Envy can blind you to what you already have. If you're led by these forces, you're not living, you're reacting. You're not choosing your direction, you're just surviving your urges. But here's the powerful part. The Stoics believed you could train your mind, just like a muscle. With practice, you can notice when anger rises and choose patience. You can feel the tug of envy and replace it with gratitude. You can hear fear knock and answer with courage. It doesn't happen overnight, but every time you choose principle over impulse, awareness over reaction, virtue over comfort, you become a little more free. Freedom is not indulgence. Freedom is not doing whatever I want. Freedom is knowing what you truly want and not being hijacked by temporary cravings. It's the quiet confidence of someone who isn't swayed by every wave. It's the strength of someone who stands even when the world shakes. So ask yourself, who rules you? Is it your values or your urges? Are your choices driven by reason or by reaction? The good news? You don't have to conquer the world to be free. You just have to stop being a slave to your own mind. Start small. Journal when you feel triggered. Pause before responding to anger. Reflect before chasing the next shiny desire. With each step, you're reclaiming your freedom, not from the world, but from the only thing that's ever truly enslaved you, your own untrained mind. Fate, control, and choosing freedom. Anyway, what if you couldn't control what happens to you, but you could still be free? The Stoics believed in fate, not as doom, but as design. They didn't resist the flow of life. They studied it, honored it, and learned how to move with it. They accepted that much of life, weather, other people, loss, aging, even death, is outside our control. But that didn't make them powerless. Instead, they found power in a radical place. Their response. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Epictetus. This one idea changes everything. It means even if life throws storms at you, your mind doesn't have to sink. It means the world can be chaotic, but your heart can remain clear. It means fate can shape your circumstances, but not your character. Fate sets the stage, but you still choose how to act in the scene. That's not resignation, that's alignment. That's not giving up, that's stepping in. The Stoics called this acceptance, not as a passive whatever, but as a powerful yes to life as it is. Imagine this, a door closes. You can bang on it in anger. You can collapse in defeat. Or you can look around, breathe, and find the next open path. Fate may close the door, but freedom is choosing how you walk away from it. This kind of acceptance doesn't mean you enjoy everything that happens. It means you don't let what happens define you. A Stoic doesn't need the world to cooperate. They don't need applause or approval. They don't need perfect timing or smooth roads. They need one thing: clarity. Clarity that the only thing truly theirs is their inner world. That's where real freedom begins. Not in changing everything, but in changing your relationship to everything. Not in controlling outcomes, but in controlling your outlook. Let's be honest, you can't stop time. You can't stop change. You can't stop fate from unfolding in ways you didn't plan, but you can stop complaining, resisting reality, fighting the tides, and when you do, something strange happens. You feel free. Not because the world is perfect, but because you're no longer its prisoner. Fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling. Seneca. To be dragged by fate is to resist the inevitable, to suffer twice. To walk with fate is to embrace reality and still live with intention, grace, and purpose. Acceptance is not weakness, it is the highest form of strength. It says, I may not choose the weather, but I choose how I walk through the rain. I may not choose what breaks, but I choose what I build next. I may not choose the loss, but I choose the lesson. So what does it mean to be free in a fated world? It means saying yes to reality without giving up on your values, meeting what is, not with bitterness, but with curiosity, letting go of the illusion of control and replacing it with the power of conscious choice. That is Stoic freedom. Not freedom from fate, but freedom within it. Try this. Next time something goes wrong, pause and ask, what do I still control? Maybe it's your tone, your breath, your next small step. Freedom lives there in that one conscious choice. You are not the storm. You are the one who stands in it, chooses your posture, and walks forward anyway. That's what it means to be free. To say, I may not choose what happens, but I always choose who I am through it. Inner freedom is a silent force, invisible yet unshakable. Have you ever met someone who seemed utterly calm, even when everything around them was falling apart? They didn't speak loudly, they didn't fight for attention, they didn't try to control others, and yet they radiated something rare, an inner freedom. Not loud, not flashy, but deeply rooted and unshakable. The Stoics believed that this kind of freedom is the only one that truly matters. It has nothing to do with money, status, or public praise. It doesn't come from owning more, winning more, or being admired. It comes from ruling one thing only, yourself. The mind freed from passions is an impenetrable fortress, Marcus Aurelius. Let that sink in. Not the body, not the house, not the job. The mind, when it is clear, calm, and free from turmoil, becomes your strongest shelter. Others may shout and scramble. You stay steady. Others may react in anger. You respond with reason. Others may seek power over the world. You seek power over your thoughts. This is invisible strength. You don't need to prove it. You live it. Inner freedom isn't about escape. It's about presence. You can sit in a small room and still feel vast inside. You can be under pressure and still feel untouched within. You can lose what's outside you and still not lose yourself. Because real strength doesn't show up in noise. It shows up in restraint, in the pause before reaction, in the breath taken before judgment, in the gentle refusal to let chaos take over your clarity. The Stoics taught that the person who can master themselves, their desires, their impulses, their need to be right or seen, is the freest person alive. Even in chains, they remain free. Because the chains may bind their limbs, but not their choices, their dignity, or their peace. Seneca, who lived through exile and political pressure, put it simply, he is the most powerful who has power over himself. And Epictetus, born a slave, became one of the freest minds in history. So what does inner freedom look like in everyday life? It looks like saying no to what doesn't align with your values, even if it costs you approval. Letting someone else be angry without being pulled into their storm. Choosing silence when ego wants to speak. Walking away, not in fear, but in wisdom. It looks like walking lightly because you carry less inside. Not bitterness, not guilt, not the weight of other people's opinions, just clarity and peace. Here's the secret. You don't need the world to give you permission to be free. You just need to stop giving it the power to disturb your mind. You don't need a perfect life. You need a well-governed mind. Try asking yourself, am I being ruled by my emotions or guided by my principles? Am I reacting to the world or responding from within? Is my peace dependent on circumstances or anchored in something deeper? When you begin to ask these questions, you begin to reclaim something precious, yourself. Not the version molded by fear, pressure, or expectation, but the version that is rooted in clarity and conscience. That is the quiet force of Stoicism, not to control others, not to look powerful, but to be truly free inside. Because in the end, the loudest power fades. But the calmest strength endures, and no one can take it from you, because it was never theirs to give. It lives in how you think, how you act, how you return to yourself again and again. That is the strength no storm can shake. No one can take what's truly yours. What if everything you had, your home, your career, your health, was taken from you? Would you still be you? This is not just a philosophical question. It's the very heart of Stoic wisdom. The Stoics believe that true freedom lies in mastering yourself, not your circumstances, and that the only thing that truly belongs to you is your mind, your thoughts, your judgments, and how you choose to respond. Seneca put it simply, nothing is ours except time and the use of our minds. We don't own our reputation. It can vanish overnight. We don't own our possessions. They can be lost, stolen, or destroyed. We don't own the people we love. They are gifts, not guarantees. We don't even own tomorrow. So what do we truly have? We have this moment, and we have the power to meet it with wisdom. The strength no one can see. Inner freedom is not flashy. It won't show up in your social media feed. It won't win applause. It doesn't wear a crown or drive a luxury car. But it will show up when life gets hard, when things fall apart and you stay grounded. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the mind freed from passions is an impenetrable fortress. You can lose your status, your relationships, your plans, but if you've trained your inner world, if you've built a fortress of self-awareness, discipline, and acceptance, then nothing can truly shake you. People might see calm on the outside. What they don't see is the unshakable presence within. That's the power of inner freedom. It's quiet, but it's unbreakable. The chains we place on ourselves. The Stoics weren't only concerned with literal slavery or political oppression. They saw that most people are slaves to things they don't even realize, to cravings for approval, to fears about the future, to anger that rises and controls them, to past mistakes that haunt them. Seneca warned that the person most enslaved is not the one in chains, but the one who cannot govern their own impulses. He is the most enslaved who is a slave to himself. And so Stoicism challenges us with this powerful question. Who or what are you giving your freedom to? To the opinion of strangers, to an obsession with success, to regrets that can't be undone. You are free the moment you stop letting those things define you. Claiming what cannot be taken freedom doesn't come from changing the world. It comes from changing your relationship with it. You don't control what happens to you, but you control how you interpret it, how you show up, and how you move forward. As Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And reaction is always your domain. That's where true freedom lives, not in escape, but in engagement with reality on your own terms. That's what makes it so powerful and so rare. Final words, you already hold the key. In the end, inner freedom is not a reward for the perfect. It's a practice for the present. You don't need to wait for life to slow down, for problems to disappear, or for people to approve. You can begin now, in this breath, in this moment. With this thought, I cannot lose what is truly mine unless I give it away. And that is the great secret of the Stoics. True freedom isn't given. It isn't earned, it's claimed. Claimed by the person who dares to live with reason, courage, and peace, even in a world that offers none of those things. So ask yourself now, what am I clinging to that isn't mine? And who could I become if I chose today to be free?